Who Am I? A Ghost Movement essay. Most people answer the question, Who am I? Without ever noticing that they are answering it from a very specific place. The answer does not arrive as a sentence. It arrives as a location, somewhere behind the eyes, somewhere near the forehead, somewhere close to the voice that narrates thoughts. That place becomes home. From there, we look out at the world. From there, we make plans. From there, we worry, remember, rehearse, decide. From there, we believe we are living. This is not a mistake in the usual sense. It is a habit that forms early and is reinforced constantly. We are praised for thinking clearly, for explaining ourselves, for controlling impulses, for planning ahead. We learn to treat thought as the center of who we are. The body becomes secondary, useful, necessary, sometimes inconvenient, something we have rather than something we are. Language quietly seals this arrangement. We say my body, my hands, my breath, my feelings. Each phrase draws a line. On one side of the line is the owner, the thinker, the one who speaks. On the other side is the owned, the thing being managed. Over time, those lines thicken into a structure we stop noticing. The body becomes a vehicle. The self becomes a passenger. Life is narrated rather than inhabited. In the ghost movement, we name this structure the thin firewall. It is not dramatic. It is not pathological. It is thin because it is made of habit, not substance. It sits between thought and sensation, between narration and living. It does not block experience. Experience crosses it constantly. What it blocks is recognition. People feel all the time without feeling that they are feeling. They move without noticing that they are moving. They breathe without noticing that breathing is happening. They are alive without quite being here. This is why simply saying there is no separation does not work. Many people already agree with that sentence. They can repeat it, explain it, defend it, and yet they remain firmly on one side of the firewall, living as a point of thought rather than as a whole living field. Agreement does not dissolve the firewall, recognition does. So let us slow this down and be precise. Right now, wherever you are, something is happening that does not require your opinion. Weight is distributing through your body. Gravity is doing its work. Muscles are adjusting. Breath is moving in and out. Eyes are blinking. The body is not waiting for instruction. It is already alive. This is not philosophy. It is fact. Notice where you are located as you read this, not what you think about it. Where you are. Are you concentrated in the head, watching the words go by? Or can you sense the contact between your body and what supports it? The chair, the floor, the ground. Can you feel temperature on the skin? Can you feel the small movements that happen without you initiating them? If you notice nothing, that is also information. It tells you where attention has been trained to live. The firewall keeps attention narrow. It keeps the sense of self compressed. It encourages us to live as a point. From that point, we observe the body as if from a slight distance. We correct it, judge it, push it, ignore it, soothe it. We rarely recognize it as the very place where we are. This is where teaching matters. The problem is not that the mind is involved. The problem is that the mind has been mistaken for the whole. Thought is an activity that happens within you. It is not the container you live inside. When thought becomes the center, everything else becomes peripheral. Sensation becomes background noise. The body becomes an object. Presence becomes an idea rather than a state. Here is a simple but crucial distinction. There is a difference between thinking about experience and being located in experience. Most people live the majority of their lives in the first mode. They think about what they feel. They comment on what is happening. They narrate themselves through the day. Even when they pay attention to the body, they often do so from the outside, as if checking on something that belongs to them. This is why the shift we are talking about is often described as the body feeling lighter. It is not because anything has improved, it is because something has decompressed. The self stops being squeezed into a single point of narration and begins to spread across the whole organism. One of the clearest ways to feel this shift is through language, not as an idea, but as a physical experiment. Notice how often you say my body, my foot, my breath. Now notice what happens if, even briefly, the ownership drops away. Not to deny that the body is yours, but to remove the split created by possession. Not my foot, but the foot. Not my breath, but breath. Not my body, but the body. At first, this can feel odd, even wrong. It can sound detached. But many people notice something unexpected. Sensation becomes more immediate, not less. The body stops being something you are watching and becomes the place you are in. The distance collapses. This is not semantics, it is orientation. When the owner drops out of the center, the split softens, the firewall thins. The body is no longer something you are carrying, it is what you are happening as. This is the moment people often describe as a sudden clarity, or a quiet shock, or a sense of arrival. Not an emotional high, not excitement, a simple, steady recognition. Oh, I am here, not behind my eyes. Here. This is why people can think they understand this for years, and then suddenly have a moment where it lands. Understanding sits in thought. Landing is physical. The firewall allows the first and blocks the second. Once you begin to notice this difference, it becomes obvious how much of modern life reinforces the split. Speed rewards thinking ahead of experience. Screens pull attention upward and forward. Productivity encourages us to treat the body as a resource to be managed. Even rest is often approached as something the mind permits the body to have. The cost of this is subtle but cumulative. People report feeling disconnected without knowing why, numb without being depressed, restless without being anxious. They feel as if they are present for their own lives, but not quite inside them. They are always slightly elsewhere. Crossing the firewall does not solve life. It does not remove difficulty, pain, or uncertainty. What it does is change where you live from. Instead of living as a commentator on life, you live as a participant again. This is where love enters, not as romance, not as intimacy, but as a general human phenomenon. Love between people has a particular quality. It does not stay neatly in thought. It is felt as orientation. The body turns towards, attention softens, the nervous system shifts. This can happen between friends, between family members, between strangers, even in brief or imperfect moments. It does not require closeness or history. It is simply the body recognizing connection. What matters here is not the relationship, but the structure of the experience. When love is present, even quietly, the firewall becomes less relevant. The body responds as a whole. There is less commentary and more immediacy, less management and more presence. This does not mean love causes embodiment. It means love reveals it. People often assume that love is something the mind decides and the body follows. In reality, it is usually the opposite. The body recognizes first. The mind explains later. This is another example of the hierarchy being misunderstood. The same pattern appears in fear, in relief, in curiosity, in care. The body responds as a field. Thought narrates after the fact. When you live behind the firewall, you believe the narration is the origin. When the firewall thins, you see the order clearly. This is also where the concept of the dot is often misunderstood. In the ghost movement, the dot refers to the steady point of awareness beneath story. Many people imagine this as something in the head, a calm observer watching sensations come and go. That interpretation keeps the firewall intact. It relocates the center, but does not dissolve the split. The dot is not a point you retreat into. It is what becomes noticeable when you stop insisting on being a point at all. It appears as steadiness within the field of the body, not above it. It is not separate from sensation. It is revealed through sensation. When the body is recognized as self rather than vehicle, the dot is no longer imagined. It is felt as the quiet coherence that remains while breath moves, posture adjusts, and life continues to happen. It is not opposed to movement. It is not opposed to thought. It simply is not confused with either. This distinction matters because it prevents the teaching from becoming another technique. The aim is not to move awareness from the head into the body as a task. The aim is to recognize that awareness was never confined to the head in the first place. Once this lands, even briefly, it changes how everything else is understood. Memory is no longer only mental. It lives in posture, in reflex, in rhythm. Presence is no longer something you try to create. It is something you stop blocking. Love is no longer a story you tell yourself. It is something the body already knows how to do. This is why this lesson sits at the center of the ghost movement. Without it, everything else risks becoming conceptual. With it, the rest of the work becomes recognizable rather than theoretical. If you are reading this and wondering whether it has landed, the answer is not in your thoughts. It is in your body. Has something shifted in where you are located? Has attention widened? Has breath changed? Has the constant commentary softened even slightly? If not, nothing is wrong. The firewall is persistent because it is useful. It keeps life manageable. It allows us to function in demanding environments, but it is not the only way to live. The moment this recognition does land, even for a few seconds, it is difficult to forget. You may return to old habits. You may find yourself back behind the eyes, but you will know there is another way of being here. One that is quieter, wider, and more honest. Who am I then? I am not only the one who thinks. I am the one who breathes without instruction. I am the one whose weight settles through the body. I am the one whose posture adjusts before a decision forms. I am the one who feels connection as orientation, not as concept. I am the one who lives as sensation, movement, rhythm, and awareness together. I am not divided. The firewall was learnt. It can be unlearnt. Not through effort, not through discipline, but through repeated recognition. Each time you notice that you are already here, already whole, already embodied, something loosens. The self stops being a point that manages a body and becomes the living field it always was. That is not a belief. It is an experience. And when it happens, even quietly, even briefly, it tends to arrive with the same simple realization. This is what being alive feels like from the inside.